All right, today we're going to dive into something pretty interesting, a deep dive, a real analysis of a spoon. Yeah, a spoon. But this simple experiment, believe it or not, tells us a whole lot about things like engineering, what failure really means, and, what it takes to have that breakthrough moment. So yeah, let's get right into it. So let's start with a big question, right? What is the anatomy of success? Is it all about having that one brilliant idea, or maybe having the perfect materials from the get-go, or is it something else? Well, this study we're looking at today tries to answer that in a pretty profound way, and it does it by looking at one of the simplest tools humanity has ever come up with. Okay, so the core challenge the researchers gave themselves was this. Can we, right now, engineer a working spoon completely from scratch? And you hear that and you think, how hard can it be? But as we're about to see, the line between something that actually works and something that's just completely useless, it's a lot finer than you think. All right, before we go any further, let's get on the same page. What are we even trying to make here? What is a spoon? Well, it's a utensil, right? It's got that little bowl, a handle, and it has to do a job. It has to help with eating, stirring, and serving food. That's it. That's the definition. That's our goalpost. Either the things we make can do that, or they can't. Simple as that. So the goal is clear. Now, how did they go about this? What was the method? Well, the researchers picked 4 totally different materials. Each one has its own unique quirks, its own properties, and the plan was to see if any of them were actually up to the task of becoming a real, functioning spoon. And here they are, our 4 contenders. In one corner, we have foil. Then we have paper. The wild card, sponge. And finally, cardboard. They're all lined up, ready to go. And the big question is, which one of these, if any of them, can actually achieve, I don't know, what do you call it, spoonness? Okay, it's time for the actual trials. The experiment begins. And as the researchers started testing, the first few results started rolling in. And they were, well, let's just say they were consistent. A really clear pattern started showing up pretty quick. A pattern that the team, in their infinite scientific wisdom, just logged as, oops. First step to the plate, the foil spoon. It makes sense, right? It's easy to shape. You can make it look like a spoon, no problem. Hopes were probably pretty high for this one. So they put it through its paces. And the result? Yeah, a complete failure. The foil spoon just couldn't hold up. It had zero structural integrity. So the team pulls out the logbook and writes down a big, definitive, oops. Okay, 1 down, 3 to go. But hey, they weren't going to give up that easily. Next up was paper. Totally different set of properties, right? But the question remained, could it handle the unique pressures of being a spoon? They ran the exact same test, under the exact same conditions. And you guessed it, another oops. The paper spoon basically just fell apart the second it touched liquid. That absorbency, that was its fatal flaw. So yeah, we're definitely seeing a pattern emerge here, aren't we? All right, next up, the team tries a sponge. Now look, this is a weird choice. We can all admit that. But hey, that's science, right? You gotta test the crazy ideas too. Maybe, just maybe, that porous structure could be an advantage somehow. I don't know. Nope. It was a resounding oops. In fact, you could say this was the most spectacular failure of them all. It literally did the opposite of what a spoon should do. It absorbed the liquid it was supposed to hold. So at this point, the data is crystal clear. 3 tests, 3 big failures. At this point, it's starting to look like this whole thing is a wash, right? A complete bust. But then came the final trial. And test subject number 4, the cardboard spoon, it gave them a result that just completely shattered the pattern they'd been seeing. The procedure was exactly the same. No changes. They took the final material, the cardboard, and put it through the same test, same conditions. You can just imagine the team getting their logbooks ready, probably expecting to just sigh and write down one final oops. But that is not what happened. The result they wrote down wasn't oops, it was yes. The cardboard spoon, it actually worked. It held liquid. It did its job. They finally had a successful prototype. So, what's the takeaway here? What do we learn from all this? Well, getting that one single success after a whole string of failures, that is incredibly valuable data. The next job for the team was to figure out why. Why did cardboard work when everything else failed? It was time to figure out the principle of spoons. And when you lay it all out, side by side, the split is just, it's obvious. You've got your failed group over here, foil, paper, sponge, and on the other side, the lone survivor, cardboard. So what was the big difference? What was it about cardboard that put it in the winner's circle? Turns out, looking at that comparison reveals 3 key things you need for a spoon to work. First, you need structural integrity. That's what the foil was missing. Second, you need enough rigidity, which is where the paper just fell apart. And third, and this is a big one, you need to be resistant to absorption, the sponge's fatal flaw. Cardboard? It was the only one that ticked all 3 of those boxes. And that right there, that's really the heart of this whole thing. This experiment isn't really a story about 3 failures and 1 success. It's a story about persistence. Think about it. Success didn't come from trying to avoid those oops moments. It came from pushing through them, one after the other, to finally find that one variable that worked, that one yes. Which kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on, right? The spoon experiment, in its, beautiful simplicity, it really makes you wonder, how many big, complex problems in our own lives are we just totally overthinking? How often is there a cardboard spoon solution sitting right there in front of us if we just had the persistence to work our way past the foil and the paper and the sponge first?